Let me ask you a question. What did you eat for breakfast today? Did you think of the answer in English right away? Or did you pause for a second, translate it in your head, and then start to find the words? You are making a huge mistake. You translate everything in your head before speaking. And because of that, you struggle to speak fluently and often forget words mid-sentence. That is what can make you feel stuck at an intermediate level for years. But what if you could train your brain to think directly in English? No more awkward pauses, no more slow responses, no more getting stuck searching for words. Just effortless, natural English, just like a fluent speaker. The good news, there's a process for this, and once you follow it, you can stop translating in your head and start thinking in English automatically. And I know it works because I did it myself. A few years ago, I was trapped in the same cycle, translating everything, overthinking every word, and feeling frustrated every time I spoke English. But after months of testing different techniques, I finally figured out a system that transformed my brain to think in English with no effort. And today, I'm gonna show you exactly how you can do the same. So let's get started. You know that moment when someone asks you something in English and your brain just freezes? It's not because you don't know the words. It's because your mind is doing too much at once. You are hearing English, translating it into your native language. Think of a response, turning that back into English and then speaking. But by the time you say something, the conversation has already moved on and you are left behind, stuck in your own head. These moments feel really awkward. And I want you to know that it's not your fault. No one told you the real problem. I didn't know either. Until one day I discovered the truth. Translation is the silent killer of English fluency. When I first started learning English, I did what felt normal. I matched every English word with a word from my native language. And eventually my brain built this habit. For every sentence, I had to go through a long mental process. So every time I wanted to speak, I took a long time. So I would see something, think of a word in my native language, and translate it into English before speaking out loud. It's like driving to your house, but going through another city first. It doesn't make any sense. I used to finish conversations in English and I always felt mentally exhausted and tired. I didn't know why. I thought there was something wrong with me. Then something happened. One day I was at a store and just for a second, I thought, I need bread. But I didn't think my native language. I thought it in English first. And that was the moment that I realized what fluency feels like. There was no translation. It was just English, natural, and it was real. That's when everything changed. I realized that translation was not helping me at all. It was slowing me down, making me anxious and building the wrong habits in my brain. And as simple as it seems, just that little phrase, I need bread, changed everything for me. Because you have to realize this. These little moments, even though really small, that you might be thinking right now, it doesn't make any sense, like just one phrase. But you have to realize that when you keep translating in your head, always, you just get used to it. And when you get that win, just that little phrase, it changed everything that you always thought about learning English. And here's what happens when you keep translating. You feel slow and awkward in conversations. Even a small delay can make people think you are confused, even if you understand. You miss the meaning of English expressions. Like, for example, I'm over the moon. When I translated that word for word, it made no sense in my native language. I imagined someone floating in space. And the worst of all, you are producing the wrong skill. Every time you translate, you are teaching your brain that is the right way to speak. But it's not. You're actually training your brain to depend on your native language. That's not fluency, that's a trap. That is really hard to get out of it if you don't do it as soon as possible. The real breakthrough comes when you finally start to think in English without any translation. When you see a dog and the word dog comes in your mind immediately. When you feel cold and you just say, I'm cold, without thinking. For years I thought the solution was to get better at translating so I could do it faster. But then I realized that the real solution is to stop translating completely. And when I made that shift, something amazing happened. English stopped feeling like a foreign language and it started to feel like a part of me. I know what you think. That sounds great, but how do I actually stop translating? I used to feel the same way. I thought maybe my brain was broken, that I would never become fluent. But the truth is, your brain is not broken. There's nothing wrong with your brain. You just have not trained your brain in the right way yet. You can think directly in English. You can build a connection. It's not about talent or being special. It's about the right method. It's about the right techniques. That is why in the next point, I'm going to share with you the exact routine that I follow to break this cycle of translating everything in my head first. It only takes a few minutes a day. You don't need any fancy tools. Just the things around your house and the courage and the will to do something different. And I'll also show a very strange but powerful technique that helped me start thinking in English in just a few weeks. But before we get there, I need you to understand one thing. You don't need more English words. You need to change the path that your brain takes when it wants to speak. And once you do that, you will be shocked at how fast your fluency grows. You are about to learn something that could change the way you learn English forever. This is not just another tip or trick. It's a hidden key that fluent speakers never talk about. And I found it by accident. For years, I struggled in English conversations. I was always translating in my head, back and forth, and it always left me tired, frustrated, and slow. Then one night, I remember like it was yesterday. Something strange, really strange happened. I had a dream completely in English. And when I woke up, I was in shock. I was like, what? How could my brain speak English so easily when I was asleep, but not when I was awake? That question changed everything. It led me to discover what I now call the direct pathway fluency, a simple 3-step system that helped me stop translating and start thinking in English. It's not taught in schools, it's not in textbooks, and it goes against most of what you've been told. But once you understand these 3 steps, you will never go back. Brain unlocking. Your brain has like a wall that protects your native language. This wall blocks you from thinking in English. So to remove it, I stopped doing a simple 5-minute exercise every single day. So you gotta close your eyes and imagine a door. This door is the wall between your native language and English. Now you gotta imagine opening that door a little bit more every single day. And at the same time you're doing this, say it out loud. My mind thinks directly in English now. It might sound silly, but after a few days, I was surprised that I was actually improving. I looked at a cat and the word cat came into my mind in English with no translation. That is when I knew it was working. The anchor method. Most people try to think in English all day, but it's too much. Instead, just choose 3 different activities that you can do daily. I choose brushing my teeth, making coffee, and walking to the bus stop. During those moments only, I force myself to think in English. Even simple things like I'm picking up my toothbrush, I am brushing my teeth. And of course, these little phrases seem so simple and it might seem weird and slow at first. You might think that it doesn't even make sense or that it's not gonna work, but that is how you start something great. That is how you start training your brain to start thinking in English directly. And what happened to me was that after a few days doing that, in a few weeks, my brain started to think directly in English. These phrases were coming to my mind automatically in English. I wasn't translating anymore. These small anchor points help my brain connect English with real life, deep and immersion. This is where you grow fast. It's not just about listening to podcasts or watching movies. Those are passive. Here's what I did. I recorded myself asking simple questions in English, like what did you eat for breakfast or what are you wearing? Then I played the recordings and gave myself 3 seconds to answer out loud. And the time pressure, just 3 seconds, it stopped my brain from translating. I had no choice but to think in English. At first I was stopping all the time, I didn't know what to say, but after a while I got faster and it started to get natural. Soon I could answer questions in English without thinking. It felt just like my native language. And something really funny happened to me. One day someone asked me a question in my native language and I accidentally answered in English. I didn't even know what was happening. I didn't even think. I just thought about the question and I just answered in English. And that happened in a country that 99% of people don't speak English. So out of nowhere, I started to speak in English with that person. We both started laughing and I had to stop and explain what was happening. The person didn't know a word of English. Imagine that you are, sitting close to someone and that person asks you a question and then out of nowhere, the person starts to speak a completely different language that you don't even know about. That's when I realized that English had become something natural in my brain. And why this works? Because most methods try to add more English into your brain. But this system changes how your brain uses English. I stopped being a student in English and I started being a thinker in English. But be careful, there's one big mistake that can destroy the whole process. I made this mistake twice before getting right. In the next part of the video, I'm going to show you what that mistake is and how to avoid it. Now that you know the 3-step system to start thinking in English, let me show you something even more powerful, something that can change your whole life. Most people think that thinking in English just helps you speak faster. But that's like saying a rocket is just a faster airplane. The truth is much deeper. In my own journey, at first, I noticed just a few small changes. Talking felt easier, I wasn't so tired after conversations. My brain was not working all the time trying to translate. But one day something happened that it completely transformed the way I saw this skill. I was on a video call online talking to some people in English. And someone asked me a question, a simple question. What do you think about learning English online? Before, this kind of question would have scared me a lot. I would translate in my head and naturally it would take me a few seconds or even a minute to answer the question. So it was always a process that I was always struggling with. But this time, I didn't even think about the language. I just focused on the answer. And my real thoughts came out smoothly, clearly, and naturally. That's when I realized that thinking in English doesn't just make you speaking better. It unlocks your full intelligence. It unlocks all your knowledge. When you translate, a part of your brain is always busy. Think of it like your phone running too many apps. It slows everything down. So, because of that, your words get simpler. Your own ideas that you would have naturally in your native language disappear. So essentially, you don't sound like yourself. You cannot show your real personality. But when you think in English, you actually feel that relief. You actually feel so much more free. Your thoughts flow better, your confidence grows. You become you again, just like in your native language, but in English. I started to see things that surprised even me. I was cracking jokes, I was sharing deep thoughts and ideas that I always had. People didn't see me as the guy that was learning English anymore. They saw the real me, my real personality. And this is even proven by studies. When you stop translating, your brain uses different parts. The creative, problem-solving parts. You don't become smarter. You just finally access the knowledge and intelligence that you always had. And translating everything you had first was not making you access that before. For a long time, I thought that I was boring in English. But I was not boring. I was just tired from translating everything in my head first. And once I stopped, I felt alive again, like I had never felt before in English. My humor came back. My true self came back as well. All the things that I was in my native language, I was now in English because I stopped translating everything in my head first. And that is what I want for you. If you ever felt less smart or not confident or less yourself when speaking English, that is not who you are. It's just a translation wall between yourself and English. And if you break it through it, you will find out your true potential. In conversations in English, in life, in everything. So as you keep practicing these 3 steps, remember, it's not just about fluency. It's about freedom. It's about being fully you in English. So in the next section, I'm going to share with you how you can make this breakthrough even faster using a powerful technique called emotional anchoring. It helped me unlock the final level when I was stuck. I will also reveal the surprising connection between thinking in English first and achieving your biggest goals in life. Have you ever tried to think in English and in a very fast way, like out of nowhere, you just don't know what to say? Your mind just goes blank. Like everything inside of your head, the words, the phrases, the ideas just disappeared. And this is a terrifying feeling. I know, because I have experienced countless times before. But let me tell you something important. You are not alone, because most people feel this way. And most importantly, this is not even your fault. That moment when it feels like your brain is blocking you from thinking, when it just freezes, it doesn't mean you're bad at English. It means that your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do: protect you. Let me explain what is really happening. When I first began using my 3-step system to start thinking in English fluently, I thought that I had cracked the code. I thought that that was the only solution. I was finally speaking more, understanding more, thinking more. But out of nowhere, again, I hit a wall. Everything that I had just learned disappeared. No matter how hard I tried to focus, nothing came out. No thoughts, no words, just stress. And I got frustrated. I tried to push it harder. I told myself that I was the problem, that I had to do better. But the more I forced it, the more I tried to force myself to do all those things again, it got worse. Until eventually, I started questioning everything. Was something wrong with me? Was I just not good enough to think in English? But there was a moment in my journey that completely changed the way I looked at English. And honestly, the way I looked at myself too. One day I realized something strange, but true. My brain was not just struggling with English. It actually thought English was dangerous. And when I started thinking about it every single day, it started to make even more sense. You've trained your brain to translate everything before speaking. You hear English, then you quick turn it into your native language. Then back into English before you say anything. That is the path your brain knows. That is what feels safe, and that is what your brain trusts. It's like a huge, bright highway that your brain drives on every single day. It's familiar, it's easy. But the moment you try something new, like thinking directly in English, it's like your brain suddenly gets lost. It's like you have left the highway and now you're walking through a dark forest with no light and no idea where you're going. And your brain starts to panic. It's like, wait, we don't go this way. This is new, this is dangerous. And that's it. Your brain shuts everything down. That is when you don't know what to say. That is when the words disappear. And not because you are dumb or because your English is bad, but because your brain is doing what it's always done, trying to protect you. And once I understand that, once I saw that these moments were not failure, but a warning signal from my brain, everything started to change for me. I started asking myself a better question. How can I help my brain feel safe while still pushing it to grow? That is when I came up with something super simple that completely changed my confidence, my mindset, and the way I was speaking English. I call it the 2-minute rule. It's easy, it's not a crazy technique, but it works. Here's how I did it. Whenever I was feeling stuck, when I hit that moment that my brain freezes and I cannot find any words, I don't fight it, because fighting it just makes it worse. Instead, I took a deep breath and I allowed myself to think in my native language. Just for 2 minutes. That's it. Just 2 minutes to let my brain reset. To let it feel safe again. To say, hey, I'm not in danger. I'm okay. Then once I felt that I was not under pressure anymore, I got back to English and tried again. And here's what happened when I started doing this all the time. Those moments when I didn't know what to say didn't control me anymore. I was not scared of it anymore. I didn't feel weak or ashamed. I just saw it as part of the process, like a signal that my brain was learning something new. And the first time I used it in real conversations, I remember exactly how I felt. I was talking, things were flowing, and then it hit me. But instead of freaking out, I just paused, I smiled, I took a little break, then I gave it another try. And to my surprise, the words just started to come out. And they were not perfect, but they were real, they were natural. And for the first time, I felt like I was in control. I felt like my brain had stopped fighting itself. I had found finally a way to solve this problem, at least for a few minutes and it was working. I didn't have to translate in my head everything anymore. And the best way that I can explain it is like learning to swim. If someone throws you into the deep water before you are ready, you will panic, you will struggle, and you will sink. You will die. But if you know you can always touch the bottom, that you have support, that you know that even if you don't know how to swim, you're not gonna sink and you're not gonna die, you relax, you flow, you start to learn. That is what the 2-minute rule does. It gives your brain the safe spot, a moment to feel safe at the same time that it's learning something completely new. Now, here's the truth that most people don't talk about. This is not some quick hack that magically fixes everything. This is about real change. You are literally teaching your brain a new way to exist in the world. And just like fixing an old house, you don't destroy everything and start from scratch. You build a new system while the old one is there, slowly, step by step, day by day. And the sad part is that most people will never get this far. They feel fear and they decide they are not good enough. They quit, but they don't realize the truth. Those moments mean something amazing is happening. It means your brain is growing, is changing, is adapting. One time I was talking to a friend and I completely froze in the middle of a conversation. I felt that moment of panicking rising, right? But then I just started laughing and I said, hold on, my brain is upgrading right now. And it was just something to say at the moment that it was funny in a way. Just to make things more natural and more, enjoyable. And we both just left. A few seconds later, I finished what I wanted to say in clear, confident English. And once I started to realize every time I felt stuck or scared, I just had to remind myself that that was not failure, that was growth. That was the moment that I became stronger. Of course, when you do this little by little, something amazing starts to happen. There's moments that I was feeling stuck, that I had to pause a lot, that I had to translate in my head, didn't happen so often anymore. They didn't scare me anymore. And they almost disappeared completely. And I knew from that moment on, when it happened, I would not be frustrated. I would celebrate it because I knew I was still learning, I was still improving, and I was still moving forward. And the same thing can happen for you. Let me tell you what really happens when you are nervous and trying to speak English. When you are stressed, your brain plays a trick on you. You try to speak, but the words disappeared. Your heart starts to beat faster, your mind goes blank, and you think, why is this happening? I know a little bit of English or enough English to not experience this. But it's not about how much English you think you know. It's about how your brain handles stress. Here's something that actually works when that happens. Before any scary English situation, try this breathing technique. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, then breathe out slowly for 8 seconds. And you do this 3 times. I know it sounds too simple, but it works. It sends a powerful sign to your brain that you are safe. And once your body feels safe, your brain can start to think in English again. And here's another thing that helped me a lot. I created a list of small, easy English phrases, and I practiced them until they felt automatic, like I didn't have to think about them anymore. Things like, that's a really interesting question. Or let me think about this for a moment. When you are nervous, your brain cannot build full sentences from scratch. But if you train these short phrases, your brain can remember them really fast and you don't have to think about it. Now, here's something that will change everything for you. Practice English when you are a little bit stressed, on purpose. Try to speak English when you are in a hurry and walking fast, or right after a workout, or even just standing in a cold shower. And I know it sounds crazy, I know it sounds that has nothing to do with anything, but it works. Doing this, you train your brain to speak English and to think in English under stressful moments. That is exactly what happens in real life. Interviews, presentations, important conversations. You are always stressed and anxious in these moments. But now, if you train your brain to think and speak in English in these situations that feel stressful most of the time, it makes you feel more comfortable in real life situations like an interview or a presentation, for example. And here's what most people don't know when they start learning English. When you are in a stressful situation, your body is the first to react, even before your brain starts to think. Your shoulders get high, Your job becomes hard. Your breathing gets fast and short. And then, just like that, your English feels like it disappears. You forget the words that you want to say. You cannot think clearly. And your mouth doesn't move the way that you want it to. But the secret is when you calm your body first, if you relax your shoulders, if you take a slow, deep breath, your brain slowly will start to feel safe again. And when your brain feels safe, the English words start to come back again. Your mind gets clearer and you start to speak better. Not because out of nowhere your English improved, but because your body is no longer in panic mode. The real problem is not grammar or how many English words you know. It's not your accent either. The biggest thing stopping you is how your brain reacts when you feel fear. You might speak well when you are alone and relaxed, but when you feel nervous or afraid, everything becomes much harder and your confidence disappears. And if you can learn how to speak English even when you feel nervous, you will sound so much better, even if your grammar is not perfect, and even if you make small mistakes sometimes. The best way to train this is to start small. Try speaking English in easy situations, like ordering food, asking someone for directions, try saying hello to someone new. And I know you might be thinking, but I don't have anyone to talk to. I'm living in a country that nobody speaks English. Yeah, so you adapt these situations in a way that you can do it. You can do it by yourself. You can, talk to people online. You find a way. After that, you can move to more difficult situations, like talking on the phone, having a longer conversation, or doing a job interview or presentation. Every time you speak English in a moment that you feel a little bit nervous and you don't give up, your brain learns something really important. We are okay, we are safe, we can do this. And when your brain starts to believe that, everything changes. The fear becomes smaller, you don't have to pause it that much anymore, and you begin to speak English with more power, more calm, and everything starts to flow more. Now, here's the final thing. Everything that I just told you will help you. But it's not everything, it's not enough. Because none of this matters if you cannot express yourself in English. Even just a few sentences. Why would you ever try to think in English if you cannot speak? But don't worry, I made a full guide that shows you exactly how to speak English fluently and with confidence, step by step. You can watch here next, and I'll see you very soon.